You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Tonight, we welcome in with offices in Melbourne and Brisbane, Australia, Robert McGirr, co-founder and director of Elit Lawyers. How are you, good sir?
Very well, thank you, Benny. Lovely to be on your podcast.
So great to have you here. I've heard wonderful things about what you're doing at Elit and yourself. I had Danielle on the show. I believe Danielle Snell, your co-founder, who is just a dynamic and very impressive young lady. And we had her on in March of this year. That was a few months ago, and she just insisted that we have to get you on. And I was pleased. I love talking with the people from Australia. I mean, you guys are like, you make me feel like I'm on vacation or something, even though I've never been there. But
yeah, no. Yeah.
So welcome. Yeah. Thanks for being here. So tell us, let's start off, we did feature you on Lawyer Stories. It's lawyer_stories on Instagram and on Facebook, Lawyer Stories. So tell us where you're born and raised.
I was born and raised in the country in Victoria, which is in the south of Australia, in the Latrobe Valley and Gippsland area, country
Right.
boy, Benny, and sort of grew up there until I went off to university in about 71, 72. So country boy, born and bred.
There you go. So you said in your story, right off the bat, you always knew from a young age, you wanted to be a lawyer or do something with the law. And a lot of people do have this moment when, a certain circumstance makes them say, I'm going to study the law. It sounds like you kind of knew when you were very young. Can you tell us, do you remember any of that about that a little bit?
Yeah, look, I can remember, Benny, a conversation when I was at primary school with a friend of mine, and you'd often talk with your friends about what you wanted to be. And for whatever reason, I can remember at primary school, saying to my buddy at the time as we were walking along, he said, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a lawyer. And
Wow.
Lo and behold, many moons later, that took place, and been practicing now for in excess of 40 years and loved every moment of it.
That's amazing. So what was it about the practice of law that you turned to your buddy and you said, hey, I'm going to be a lawyer?
Well, it's I suppose it's the line in that story from the movie Philadelphia, where he says, sometimes, just sometimes, you really get to make a difference. And I think it was that, the study, 5 years of study was not impressive, but once you got to practice, you really got to make a difference every now and again to people's lives. Not all the time, but sometimes you really, really get to make a difference in people's lives.
That's terrific. I mean, I think that's a great reason for attorneys for people to go to law school rather. So I read something in your story and I was really curious about it. You became one of Victoria's first accredited commercial litigation specialists. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What that means, really?
Yeah, what that means is we have a law society. We're all members of it. And some years ago, in early 92, 93, they introduced specialisation, so that lawyers previously used to traverse the field, and they were general lawyers, but they developed specialisations.
Okay.
And so that you could hold yourself out to the public as someone who is specialised in a particular field. And I had, from sort of the early 90s, practiced exclusively in commercial litigation. So when the opportunity came up, when they introduced this, I went and obtained my specialisation. as a commercial litigation specialist through our law society. And subsequently, I used to lecture to lawyers who wanted to obtain specialisation in commercial litigation. So sort of I've done it, and I've recently applied to go on the advisory board for specialists in commercial litigation.
Well, I think most of your career, I've read that you've been a mentor, right? So I think a lot of young attorneys really need a mentor and someone like you who's very experienced and a well-seasoned attorney to show them the ropes and teach them things. So like, what has being a mentor meant to you?
I think when I first started out, I looked to have mentors, and I gained a great deal out of it. And over the years, from the early 90s, I was in charge of commercial litigation departments. And one of my great pleasures was having young lawyers come through. Danielle, my co-founder, 15 years ago, did articles, her first year of law with me, and we trained her. And not only Danielle, but other young lawyers I've trained over the years. And I take great pride, and I still keep in contact with them. I follow their careers, and it's great to keep you involved and active. And the practice of law in a firm environment is really a team game. And no one has a monopoly of wisdom, Benny. And it is great to bounce things off the young lawyer. You learn as much from them as they learn from you. And
really? Okay. So that's interesting. So I've never really heard that. So you learn as much from young lawyers as they learn from you. I like that.
Yeah, because nobody has a monopoly of wisdom. And it's always, usually, Benny, when you sit down and you're discussing an issue or hot tubbing an issue, someone sits there and they have a question and they think, oh, I won't ask that question. But usually that's the best question. And they come at it from different angles, and they introduce different angles. And you can always learn from that. And so, as I say, I've always said no one has a monopoly on the wisdom, and it can come all around the table. And that's the exciting thing about it.
And I think that's like super open-minded of you to even, a lot of I'm guessing a lot of senior associates or like partners might not have, that open mind to say like, I'm going to actually learn something from a young associate. So I think like that's like a great thing. I believe that, any young associate would love to learn from, a seasoned attorney like you, who also believes you would pick up things along the way from the, from the younger attorney. And I think being on this podcast is actually a testament to that, being on this show, because this kind of stuff hasn't been around, that long, I guess.
Yeah. So. Yeah, look, it's wonderful to, the practice of law, most people will tell you, Betty, it's about the clients you act for, and it's also the people you meet and the people you work with. And it's been a great pleasure of mine, and I've been very lucky over the years, and I've enjoyed it from that perspective. And and I love looking around now at some of the lawyers who I've trained, who are really going well, improving their professional development elsewhere, and watching them go ahead in the profession is, you take some credit for that, and you love to see them succeed.
But actually, that I do want to make a point there. I think that's another good sign of a great boss or mentor. Not all bosses or mentors want to see somebody succeed. They want to make sure that they're the boss at all time and somebody's not going to accelerate past them. But I always felt that you're in a good position when you have a mentor or a boss that wants to see you accelerate in life and like do the best you can and like get ahead. And I think like that's what you just said is an excellent point about that.
Well, also, Benny, the reality is that young lawyers, when you're going through, it's important to experience the way different people, different mentors do it. And that adds to their professional development. And I'm delighted when young lawyers who have been with me for a period of time move off and go to other places to see and to improve their professional development. And it's a great thing to see. And it's not something I'm sad to see them go, of course, but I understand the journey because I went on that journey myself. And
it's all about the story, right?
Sorry?
It's all about the story, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And the journey.
And the journey and the story, sort of synonymous. And I think, I think that's a testament to you again for being like very secure in who you are as a lawyer, wanting to see those people flourish and develop and evolve as young attorneys. So that's great. So that, thanks for sharing that with us for sure. There's something else that's interesting about your lawyer story. You mentioned in there that you work with media and like defamation. I think that's sort of like, I don't want to say like a sexy part of the law, but that's one of those things that I feel like people tune into a little bit, when they're in law school and studying, because those are like interesting cases. I mean, there was like a New York Times case back in the day, like in law school. I'm sure that, I don't know if that's like controlling law anymore. It's been like a long time since I was in law school, but like, can you tell us like what you do with, I know you review a magazine maybe, but can you tell us what you do with defamation and media law?
Yeah, over the years, Benny, years ago, myself and another partner at the firm I was with, we did pre-publication defamation advice for a weekly magazine published in Australia. And so, we'd have the deadline each week and we'd have to redline the articles. And as a consequence of that,
right.
There were defamation proceedings that were issued. It's an area that I went off and did a master's subject in. As you say, it's the sort of sexy end. It's my special interest. I've really enjoyed doing it. Yep. We've had some pretty significant cases over the journey.
Really?
And in fact, the magazine that I settled the stories for, we often had a lot of the American actors suing the magazine, etc.
Really?
Yeah. So, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were at that time. They used to take a lot of legal proceedings in relation to their privacy. They were concerned about it, and so the issue would crop up in Australia from time to time. We've had in recent times in Australia a significant defamation case involving Rebel Wilson that went on for a period of time. And currently in Australia, we've got probably the defamation case of the century running at the moment with a former Victoria Cross recipient who was in Afghanistan being accused of essentially committing murder in Afghanistan. And that action is playing out in the federal court in New South Wales in Sydney at the moment. And I went along to watch the case for a period of time. And I've been following the case from its inception. So there's, as in America, I'm sure you would get significant and highlighted cases of defamation from time to time.
And that's like a pretty tough threshold to meet, right? Defamation and.
Oh, yeah. Look, the seriousness of the imputations in terms of trying to prove the truth of them. The case being run at the moment for Ben Robert Smith, the allegation is by the media organisations that he unlawfully killed these people. So, and they're pleading truth. And currently, just the last couple of days, witnesses by video link from Afghanistan have been giving evidence in the federal court in New South Wales about that. And the case will go on for another period of, it's estimated to go for 10 weeks, but it's been interrupted by COVID-19 at the moment. But, in addition to that, I've done a lot of defamation work for, people in public companies and other people in the public eye who are upset from time to time about articles that are completely baseless being published.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Very interesting area of the law. So like, tell us, it seems like you walked the world. You also brought up in your story, 700, was that kilometers, is that, which equals like approximately 435 miles. I looked that up. So like, what was that adventure like, and what was the purpose? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my brother years ago, Benny, got me into what we call in Australia bushwalking or trekking, and
bushwalking.
I've done lots
about bushwalk. Yeah. What is that? Is that like?
Yeah, pack on your back with all your, so you can go out for 2 weeks at a time with all your food on your back, etc.
Wow.
But the walk I did recently was when I decided to have when I resigned from the previous firm I was with, I decided to have 18 months off, have a sabbatical. So I went across to Europe. I was in southern Italy, then went to France and walked for a month from the middle of France to the French-Spanish border. And, it's part of the famous St. James Walk.
Right.
And it was just fabulous. And it is a wonderful way to see a place, meet people. I went there, my wife and I went overseas together. She went off to see a friend, and I said, I want to do this walk for a month. And you meet wonderful people along the way. I started on my own, and the first night I was staying in this accommodation, I met about 6 people, and we walked together for a month. People from all parts of the world.
So you stayed in a place and they were walking too?
Yes. We stayed.
What was it, a tent or like a hostel or?
You stay in a sort of hostel come 1-2-star hotel, or you stay in people's houses, and it was just fabulous. You walk, lunch during the day, at night time. You work anywhere between 21 to 32 kilometres a day. Wow. It's not particularly difficult, the great part is that you meet and talk to many and different people who are on the same journey as you.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. And you were doing that for a few months, right? Like that.
Yeah, and I came back to Australia and I met a guy from Texas over there and a guy from Sydney, and they said they were coming to Australia, and they went to New Zealand in the beginning of last year, and walked from the top of the North Island of New Zealand to the bottom of the South Island, which is 3,000 kilometres. And I said to them, I couldn't afford that period of time, but I flew across and walked with them for about 300 kilometres in the North Island of New Zealand. And then we canoed down the Wanganui River for 7 days, so sort of camping by the riverside.
So yeah, just like let your hair grow out, you just didn't shave? Is that like one of those things?
It's just out there on your own, and just whatever comes.
That's awesome. That truly sounds amazing. So your first firm, like your first sort of, I don't want to say career, but your first firm, like how long were you there? Like out of articling, like what was your first job and how long was your first stint?
I worked for a personal injuries firm initially, Slater and Gordon. That was for about 3 or 4 years. And then I moved to Country Partnership for about 6 years. I was a partner there. And then I decided after that I wanted to do commercial litigation, and I needed to move to the city. And in 91, I moved back to Melbourne, joined a firm there and practiced there for the next 20 years as a partner and head of the commercial insurance and commercial litigation partnership. And, after a period of time, Benny, in 2019, I thought it was time to have a break and refresh and do something new. And that's when I decided to, I came back from New Zealand in March last year, and of course COVID hit Melbourne, so I came up to Queensland from Melbourne, and I was up here, and I kept in contact with Danielle, my co-founder and director, and she was working on a very big piece of litigation, and I was providing some assistance. I was happy to do so because I was in lockdown at the time, and next thing we talk about setting up our Elit law practice, and that happened in October last year.
That's amazing. So, like, how did you come up with the Elit name?
Well, it was we wanted to be different. We wanted to be not the old model. We wanted to be different. We wanted to be flexible. We wanted to be diverse. We wanted to be inclusive. People could work from home. People were now using Zoom, they were using Teams. and we want it to be electronic. We want it to be empowering, because that's what's happening in the world. So Danielle struck upon the name Elit, electronic litigation,
yep.
And that's the way we've started, because it is now people are no longer having paper files, or very little paper files. It's all electronic. People expect to receive stuff electronically, large volume documents, and it's the way of the future. Everything's stored in the cloud for security purposes, etc. And it's a very efficient way to run a practice.
So, Mr. McGirr, let me ask you this. When you said you had 3 or 4 years at one firm, 20 years at another firm, you were sort of thought you were going to hang it up. And then when you were thinking, when did it hit you, and what were your thoughts when you're like, oh, Elit, maybe I'll just, join forces with Danielle and we'll do this? Cause it's almost it's just it's amazing to see those photos on LinkedIn and everywhere of you guys. Because you're such a quality legal team, and I just what was it like to have that thought, wow, I'm really going to do this again?
Yeah, look, what got me back into it was Danielle contacting me about this case last year, and
right.
And I was assisting her with putting a legal team together for a very complex case. I got involved in the Zoom conferences, and Benny, I realized I missed it. I realized I missed it. And the most important thing is, I've always said to young lawyers, and I said to Danielle, the important thing is that it's a great trust that people repose in you when you act for them in major pieces of litigation, which are important and significant matters in their lives. And here they are, they're reposing their trust in us to do us. And I love the strategizing. I love sort of the beginning of the case and saying, okay, it's just not, we can't think about here, we've got to think about where we want to go. And it's about the strategy. It's about putting it together. It's about working out what the client wants and
right.
How to get to that end point, because you've got to get to an end point at some stage. And all of that is fantastic. And I've enjoyed it. And the great thing about it now, Benny, is that our practice largely comes out of Melbourne and Victoria, but I'm here in Queensland, in Noosa, which is just a beautiful part of the world. And I travel between the two. I can do it online. The courts are having directions hearings and hearings online, and it just makes it so much easier. And
are you guys in lockdown there still? Did they put you back in lockdown?
In New South Wales is in lockdown. Okay. There are restrictions in Queensland wearing masks. There are restrictions in Melbourne. Melbourne's just come out of a short, sharp lockdown. So the Delta variant is sort of running rife in New South Wales and Sydney at the moment, and they're locked down for another month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's it's a crazy world out there right now. So regarding the practice of law, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What still says I want to do this? I'm gonna get up.
That's it. Yeah, it's the people. It's the people you work for. You want to achieve a result for them. It's the strategizing, and it's the people you work with, and it's finding the solution. We have a knowledge base, such as carpenters, like electricians have a knowledge base, and we use that knowledge base to assist people, to help them navigate what is undoubtedly a very difficult episode in their life, a piece of litigation. Nobody likes to be involved in that. Sometimes you can't help it. And our role is to help them navigate that, walk in their shoes for the period of that litigation, and help them through that, so that they can get back onto what they do best, which is their business, etc.
So having empathy and helping them through these tough times, that's very important.
You've got to feel it, Benny. You've got to have a bit of compassion. You've got to understand it. You've got to feel what they're going through. And as I say, you've got to be able to walk in their shoes and help them on the journey through this episode in their life.
So what's your firm doing now? What's Elit doing now? And I know you say you work from home and you're very flexible, but like what makes it different? Like what are you guys doing now? Or what kind of cases are you taking on?
We're dealing significant at the moment because of COVID-19. There's a series of large cases going on in relation to business interruption claims for businesses where insurers are denying indemnity. So there's a significant number of those cases.
Do you think the insurance companies are freaking out because of these business interruption claims? Like they probably think they have to pay them, but they're trying to find like that little fine print where they don't want to pay out your clients. Sort of.
Well, we as in England, in Australia, there's been our highest court, the High Court, has delivered a decision a few months ago, which has dismissed an application for leave, which means that a favourable interpretation in favour of insureds is now preferred in relation to a particular policy. That means insurers who were previously thinking they don't have to pay out now have to pay out clients and pay out a significant amount.
Yeah.
We're also, aside from that, Benny, we're also doing a number of defamation actions for a number of key clients. There's also, we do invariably with companies and directors and shareholders agreements, there's invariably disputes in relation to that. And we've got a number of those cases going on at the moment, shareholder oppression actions, disputes between shareholders about how the company should be managed and the way forward. They invariably crop up from time to time. There's contractors who have disputes with suppliers concerning, the rates that are being paid to them because, of course, things are a bit tight at the moment. And usually when that happens, people look to strain the meaning of words in particular contracts. So those issues crop up fairly regularly.
Right. Well, so you're busy. You're busy there.
Look, it is incredibly busy at the moment, and
great
because there's lots of people in relation to leasing of commercial premises. People have suffered a loss in income. There are various rent relief schemes around for commercial tenancies. There's arguments in relation to that. Some landlords are reaching accommodations to help people through it. Others are not so generous. So, there's areas in the leasing field that are causing some difficulties for people.
What do you think lawyers aren't focusing enough on, like other attorneys? Like, are they not?
Yeah, look, what are they not focusing enough on?
Yeah. What are they not doing enough of, for like lawyers and their clients? Like maybe they're just not having compassion and empathy, or
Look, I think the thing that has really hit Danielle and I is the way in which we've set our practice up. We're the operators, we're the people. The clients come to us. When they go to a large firm, they might see the partner initially and then have the work be palmed off to other people. When they come to us, they get us.
Right.
So it's important, they've got to be able to ring you. Benny, I've always made myself available and people have my mobile number. People don't have problems between 9 and 5. So people very rarely abuse the privilege of being able to ring you at any time. I'm happy to allow people to call me at any time if they have a problem. Usually it can be resolved quite simply, and they just want a bit of advice. And as I say, they very rarely abuse it. And it's important to make yourself available when they need it most.
Right. So what's the biggest, and I think that's great advice. And I think that's great for everybody to know out there, that call Mr. McGirr at any time. He's going to help you out. Not just 9 to 5, because the problems do not come through 9 to 5. Like they're going to be after hours. You just call that cell phone, you're going to get it. And, get some help. So like, what's the biggest thing you've learned during this startup phase of Elit Lawyers?
Oh, look, I think not only in Elit, Benny, but from the moment I practiced law, the biggest thing to learn is to embrace change.
Yeah.
You've got to embrace change, and if you don't embrace change, it'll run over you like a steamroller, and it's important. And change is happening inevitably, and it's good. There are. And you just make those changes work best for you and your clients. And I think it is embracing change. I think it is being diverse. I think it is being flexible, like we are, and a different approach to things, electronic, client having access and transparency to the documents, key documents that are involved in their case. Making yourself readily available. I mean, these are the givens, and importantly, you must never ever be complacent about the trust that clients repose in you, because that trust is key, and you must always respect that. And I feel a great honour when people repose trust in me to help them get them through the episode of commercial litigation.
Oh yeah,
they're sort of key points for me, and key lessons and key learnings.
For sure. And like, so where is Elit taking cases from? Like if somebody called you from anywhere in Australia, I don't know. I've never been to Australia. Like, where?
Yeah, look, we're principally East Coast, so we, sort of Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, and Adelaide. Not much in the Western Australia, so it's principally East Coast, and I'm in Queensland, Danielle's in Melbourne. We travel between the two, so it's an East Coast firm essentially.
Okay, very good. So like, what does the future look like for Elit?
Yeah, look, it's been very dramatic, the growth, Benny, since we've been open in October. So, but the important thing is to make sure that you can't be all things to all people, and make sure that and you can't be a specialist or an expert at anything. And oftentimes it's making sure that you know when to say, no, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to send you to someone who I know will give you the answer. And there's some of the things. So, I mean, it's exciting the way it's growing. We don't want to get it too big. It needs to be so the clients come to us and they get us. And
you don't want it too big, like you don't want too many employees.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's I have some people assisting me, but the client, it's me, and Danielle has some people assisting her. But it's it's we're the focus, and we're responsible, and we're the conduit. So that's the way it's got to be, and that's the way clients like it.
Well, let me tell you, if you ever want to have any of your associates featured or on the podcast, let me know. We love having a phone call with you guys and a little video chat. It's fun.
Okay, I'd love to do that.
It's fun for us. I'm still curious about the conversation you had with Danielle. I know this is going back. We kind of touched on it, but when you guys were like, okay, like let's start this firm, like what was that conversation like with her?
Well, it was very interesting because going back to the story where Danielle trained with me, she left to go after a number of years. We worked really sensationally together, but I was pleased for her because she took the next step in her professional journey and worked for a major firm. And I used to catch up with Danielle regularly. How are you going? How's it going? Are they looking up? Are you learning more, etc.? And then she was at that firm for a period of time, and then she moved off to another firm, which was part of her professional journey again, another great move. And I would keep in contact with her, and she was improved, going well, brilliantly. And it was always wonderful to catch up. And of course, in March last year, when I was in lockdown up here, and we were talking about the case because she thought I might be able to help. And so we got going again. And then she was talking to me about, well, look, I've been thinking about maybe starting my own firm. And I said, yeah, look, You should do so. Sort of now's the time to take a risk. You should do so. You should really have a crack at it. And then
right, she did it. I remember her podcast like it was yesterday. I mean, she did it. She like during the pandemic, she did it. She's unbelievable. I mean, she did it during the pandemic, and I think she had a child on the way, and it was just amazing. So she
was Danielle was 6 months pregnant. She had a child on the way. We were talking about this, and I said, "Go do it." And she phoned me up and said, "Look, I'm going to do it. Would you come and join me?" I said, "Absolutely." So that's the way it led, and she's amazing. She's a force of her own, Danielle, and she's very hardworking, and she did a lot of the background stuff in terms of the website and all that. And I'm sure that she's delighted that she did that, and I'm delighted. She mentioned it to me, and it's just been a fabulous experience, and the growth proves it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing when two people can come together and just have like this great working chemistry and relationship, and really make a business flow and just sort of go off. So it's almost like the timing was right for the both of you, and that's terrific. I'm very pleased to hear that it worked out. So, Mr. McGirr, did we leave out anything? Do you want to say anything to the Lawyer Stories community about?
No, that's fine, Benny. It's lovely to catch up with you, and on the other side of the world, and all our best from down under to you, Benny, and the rest of you Americans. Good luck to you all, and the other lawyers who are part of your, lawyer story. Wish them all the very best. And if ever they need to contact us, we can assist in any way or give advice or whatever. We are only too happy to do so.
Oh yeah, you guys are our go-to there in Australia. Okay. That's fantastic. So hold on one moment. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Robert McGirr, such a pleasure to speak to you. Great career, and congratulations on Elit and working with Danielle, and really having a great thing going. So wherever you are in the world today, everybody, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.